Welcome to The Growth Equation. This isn't your typical business podcast. We're keeping it real about the challenges of scaling up, period. I'm Tristan Wright and I've been there. I've built and scaled my own business. I've sold it. I've learned a ton along the way. Now I'm bringing you the no BS stories of founders who are in the trenches right now, navigating that messy middle. We're talking advertising, marketing, design, creative, branding, the whole 9 yards. Doesn't matter if you're a solopreneur or running a team of 100. Everyone's got a secret sauce, that thing that makes them different, better. We're going to uncover it. So grab a coffee and let's get real. Today we're talking to Matt Jones from Tradie Web Guys and the Site Shared podcast. Matt, welcome today.
No, mate. Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Cheers. So, Matt, we're talking a bit before our call about your podcast and how you've been running that for 10 odd years before it was cool. So I want to hear a bit about your podcast and how you've used that for your business.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started as a way that we could essentially educate our audience on digital marketing related, I suppose, conversations that they would not have had exposure to elsewhere. And our audience is strictly trade-based businesses because my background, I was formerly a plumber. And I set up a digital agency back in 2012 called Tradie Web Guys, where we basically do marketing, sales and marketing related services for trade-based businesses. And we're very exclusive into that vertical. We don't deviate from that as a niche. And then, yeah, so we were sort of doing a fair bit of education at that point on like helping people understand, about the digital space, marketing, websites, and that kind of stuff. But back in the day, and we were presenting at TAFE and Department of Education and a few little roundtable events and things like that. But the feedback was great, except the groups were very small. And so I was sort of looking at a way back then that I could sort of compound that messaging and get it out to a broader audience. And then there was this thing called podcasting, which was kind of coming on the scene, which no one really knew much about. Certainly not tradies. Anyway, so we thought we'd dig our heels in and give it a crack. And it turned out that it was a pretty good move. We're now 450 odd episodes under the belt, and 435 or something published. I can't remember, but. Yeah, it's got a pretty good footprint, and we're pretty well established now around the world. It's one of the top 5 leading trade business podcasts.
Yeah, 450 odd's a decent number of podcasts. So I imagine you've had some interesting guests on there, and you've covered some interesting topics. I mean, and there's been so many of them. Truthfully, that I've forgotten a lot of the guests, and I've forgotten a lot of the topics, and so we're sort of in that part now where, because things change so much in this space, that we're sort of revisiting a lot of the topics, and we're sort of putting a different spin on it as a test of evolution. Yeah. So tell me, so you were a plumber to start with, and what was the reason for pivoting from being a plumber to getting into the digital marketing space?
I was working within a sales and marketing role for a plumbing-based company out of Sydney, where I'm from, and we're essentially selling a technology to plumbing-based or primarily plumbing-based companies anyway throughout the Asia Pacific region. So they sort of brought me in to build that business for them, which we did. And then I just noticed at that point there was a lot of we had so many clients that we would sell this technology to that wouldn't be able to sell it. And so, long story short, I basically said to a lot of them, these guys, well, you need to start marketing these things on your website and digitally. And they were like, well, we don't have one. So I figured out a way to build a couple, and one thing led to another. And the next minute, we're sort of a full-blown web division. It started off as websites only, and then it sort of moved pretty quickly into like lead generation solutions to help them scale. So, yeah.
What's that journey been like, scaling that? I'm sure you've had lots of
Sorry,
can I
swear on this podcast?
You sure can. Like I sometimes drop a couple of we won't go X-rated swearing, but we can do R-rated maybe.
No, look, it's been I like running any business, I suppose. It's an ongoing challenge. And then through the different stages of business, there's different challenges, like literally just speaking to a colleague of mine just before we jumped on this call, just talking about, like, we've had so much growth over the last 12 months, but growth with revenue, profits, team, headaches, teams headaches, teams family headaches. Like, it's just this whole, so now the next, and the realization is what gets you to this point won't get you to the next, which involves a whole new mindset and a whole new, series of frameworks and evolution that needs to happen on the business front in order to get you to that next stage. So it's never really a done thing.
And it all depends on what do you actually want from the business as well. And I'm guessing that's probably evolved over the last 10 years too.
Well, I mean, the 10-year plan is an ongoing evolution, truthfully, and that's something that we're constantly revisiting. The 1 to 3 year roadmap is something that's a bit more, I suppose, structured in terms of like breaking that down. But yeah, it is always changing and it's always evolving, and it's just you need to have that North Star, otherwise you sort of you never know you never know what the goalposts are.
Yeah. So the way you're talking, it sounds like you've been involved with some business mastermind or coaching groups, like the fact that looking North Star, 10-year, 3-year, 1 year.
I guess through running the podcast and through sort of being heavily involved on the education front, you have to know these things. I've read like hundreds of business books, and like I've had loads of coaches over the past, and I'd always my framework with that is you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So there's always something to learn, always something that you can pull from books and podcasts and coaches and all that kind of stuff.
Totally, because as you said, you've got to be continually learning. So what does the business look like today? It started off as you in the early days, and I'm sure it's not just you now.
I mean, we're a small team. There's like 17 staff, I suppose, like spread across different roles and responsibilities within the business, which are all basically relating to marketing, development, that kind of thing. So customer support, customer success, account management, ad management, all that kind of carry on. And we have we've got a full content team as well for the stuff that we do with, the podcasts and socials and all these kind of things. So yeah, everyone's got their their job and their role, and that's sort of been an ongoing evolution as well.
I find and through a lot of my conversations and dealing with a lot of businesses that say that 15 to 23 headcount of staff is almost the death zone. It's a really hard number to manage in terms of profitability, and then also layers of management within the business.
I would agree. Totally agree with that. Yeah, I think with a small team of under 10, it's very easy to manage. It's a bit more dynamic, whereas when you start getting beyond that, or maybe 10's even too much, maybe under 8. And as you get bigger, you need to have these structures in place, and you need the reporting frameworks, and you need leadership and management positions, and you need all these things, which, like I was saying before, like what got you to where you are is not going to get you to where you need to go. So you've really got to work through those challenges and evolve.
Yeah. Like for me, you don't want to be in that space for more than 12 to 18 months. If you're in that headcount zone, you probably want to get to 25 pretty quickly, so you can add that extra layer of management in and profitability.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the answer, to be honest. Truthfully, I think I've been guilty of that as well. Like thinking that the answer to those problems is by scaling team, and I've learned that it's not. I think the answer to those problems really comes down to structure, the right team on board, roles, responsibility, outcomes, KPIs, OKRs, like all these kind of
Yeah.
You've really got to have in place before you even consider scaling team.
Oh, totally. You've got to have that before you get to 15. Like, you've got to have that, for me, you've got to have that structure there before you get to that 15, because otherwise you'll struggle in that area.
I mean, I would argue that you should have that at 1, and you should scale accordingly, like, and the reality is most people won't, because it's foreign and it's probably unnecessary at that stage. But like, in the interest of like duplication, like everything will duplicate for better or worse. So, you got to, I think, we're going back to a lot of that structural stuff now, with the focus on improving like labor efficiency rate and all these kind of variables, which, when we're a small team, it didn't really matter. But as you get bigger and bigger, it's like there's nothing more important.
Yeah. When you're really looking at the moment, are you bringing in AI into it?
Yeah, I mean, yes. Well, I mean, you're stupid if you're not leveraging AI. But I mean, it's a pretty general term. So I guess where within the flow chart of the whatever the thing is you're trying to do, there are parts of that you can replace with AI and automations and systems and technology and stuff like that, and some of it you can't.
Yeah, so it's not a replacement. Like, if you look at it from a workflow perspective, you've got different roles and responsibilities. AI can't replace all of it. It cannot. It can be part of a function or one role or responsibility within a workflow, not the entire workflow or the entire piece.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the task at hand, but yeah, typically, like for a macro workflow, there's no AI or robot that can fill that void. Like, that's a combination of things.
Mm-hmm. Now, I imagine your team, you might have some that work in the office, but a lot of it's remote. A lot of the team is remote. How do you manage a remote team when you, at the end of the day, parts of what you do are quite creative?
We're 100% remote. We have been since conception, really. So, and that was born out of the fact that coming from a brick and mortar style, location based background as a trade operator, I didn't want to be tied to location. That has come with many challenges, and it's also come with many benefits. One of them being when we went through, the whole COVID scenario, nothing changed for us. There was literally, we were fully set up to operate within that dynamic, and we grew considerably during that during that calamity.
We'll call it the calamity.
We had we were well established, I suppose. Anyway, but then the cons of it, of course, is the way that you manage team, the way that you manage culture, the way that you manage project manage, and all these kind of things, which again is an ongoing evolution.
Yeah, totally. You've got to, as you said earlier, you've got to keep growing and evolving. Otherwise, you're ripe and you're rotting.
I have no doubt that a in-office dynamic is far more productive than a remote office, and I think that's why you're seeing a lot of these big organizations clawing back in-house. I think there's probably some pretty serious science behind that, but also, you build a business to operate a certain way with certain expectations, with certain processes, with certain reporting structures, and you just make it work. As an agency, we've got staff located all over the world in different time zones and things like that. So, the communications, the project management tools, the meeting structures, and all that kind of stuff is really what sort of pulls it all together. What
project management tool do you use?
We use ClickUp.
Yeah, I love it. That's what I've got and what I recommend as well.
Yeah. We're actually rebuilding it all right now. Sort of, again, an ongoing thing. It just sort of, it started to get a little bit, I don't know, loose, for better words. And so we're sort of tightening all that up, because the realization there is as well, like, now that we're really looking at, I'm looking at removing myself from the business before the end of the financial year, which means we need to have the right project management structure in place. So I'm removing myself from operations, which means we need to have the right my realization was project management needs to be tightened up and operate very efficient for us to be able to have managers, our account managers and project managers in a position where they can manage that doesn't involve me, and the tech's doing a lot of the the heavy lifting there. So that's kind of something that's happening as we speak.
I'm really interested to hear how you're going about rebuilding the process, because I'm one of my clients were doing the exact same thing with all of their processes in ClickUp. So so I'm interested to understand the thought process that you've got behind that and how you're doing it, rather than just going in and actually making the changes.
I'm getting help, truthfully, because I've been trying to do it my way for a while, and it's turned into a bit of a shitstorm. So, I'm getting someone to help with that structure. But then the rollout and the adoption off the back of it is going to be very structured, so the team understands how it works. And everyone's adopted into the tool. And the reason for it is quite simply, we need the reporting aspects to be as good as they can be in order for management to be able to make simple decisions based on KPIs and deliverables from team members. Whereas in the past, it's been, let's just build out another workspace here and, voila. Whereas in the grand scheme of things, it makes a bit of a mess, because all of a sudden you've got all these different workspaces and no one really knows where anything goes. And then whenever you use it, they will go back to using Google Sheets.
Yeah, and because they know Google Sheets. So the way we're doing it, we're using a Miro board and just ideating all the different workflows. So interviewing the staff and saying, hey, what are the workflows that you're using? And then we're just designing those workflows from scratch from those interviews before we even consider how to put it back into ClickUp. So
sounds like you've just read Get Scalable by Ryan Dice.
No, I haven't, but that's that's the methodology.
Everything really starts, I think, and for the listeners and viewers out there, that is the starting point. The workflow management is so important. Understanding, first of all, just go whiteboard it or sticky note it, whatever you need to do, and then take that into a collaborative digital workflow space, Miro, Whimsical, whatever you use, doesn't really matter. There's billions of those tools out there, and then make it collaborative, and then just evolve it as a living, breathing thing. And then when the introduction of technology comes along through certain stages, which can improve various workflows, that's where you can sort of evolve that to become a bigger and bigger thing. But version 1.0 should be pretty basic, and I encourage people not to overcomplicate version 1.0.
Yeah. I guess a lot of businesses either will overcomplicate it and never set it up, or just be like a bullet gate, set it up, and without thought process or structure, and then it organically builds and becomes a behemoth.
And I think as well, probably the way you're doing it is right, by involving the the stakeholders in the process, the people that are actually using it, as opposed to just and I've been guilty of this in the past, especially with operating procedures and things like that, where you go, I've learned that I'm extremely good at building out these highly detailed processes which no one follows, and the reason for that is because I built it. And so now we're just sort of empowering them to build it based on them being in the trenches, and it's a much better outcome.
It's really important that your team, the individuals within the business, feel like they've got ownership of the outcome. So if they don't feel like they've got ownership, they're not going to be engaged, and they're not going to actively follow the processes.
It's the biggest thing, making people accountable for the thing, whatever that is, and someone's, at the end of the day, an individual has to be responsible for that outcome, whatever it is, and at whatever level. If it's a management level, fine, it's a bigger OKR or whatever it might be, but they're accountable for it, then that ripples down to the individuals at task level. Someone has to be accountable for it, otherwise it just leads to this scenario where everyone just passes the buck. And we had that for years, especially interdepartmental. Why isn't this website live? Oh, we're waiting on copywriting. Why isn't the copywriting live? Oh, we're waiting on customer success to get the client to fill the form in. There's just this circle that goes around and nothing gets done, And so, it's important.
Yeah. too many layers involved and too many areas for excuses. So
that's right. Well, now where you've got like project manager, you're in charge of the project to be done on this date, and go figure the other shit out. Not interested. Like, just make it happen.
yeah. This is the process. We know it works, and it's fair. Just follow it. So,
well, more to the point, this is the outcome. This is what's needs to be live at this point in time, or whatever. Go and delegate, get it done, but you're responsible for this being done, and you're in charge at the end of the day. So, and then that makes the reporting so much easier, because you just know, is this on track? Traffic light system, red, red, yellow, green. Yes, on that kind of thing, and just tracking that progress throughout.
So you said you've got someone helping you. Like, did you find someone on Upwork, or have you found an agency to
no. just colleagues, associates, who's they're very, very skilled up with ClickUp. I mean, it's funny because I have people coming to me for ClickUp advice, which I've given, and I kind of regret now. But there's always someone that can do it better.
Yeah. You've got to be like, I know ClickUp. I feel like I know it inside out, but there's also the structuring component, the project management side of it. So you've got to, and then tying that project management into how ClickUp functions.
What else do you use ClickUp for other than project management?
Oh no, so I use it for project management day to day, but actually the methodologies of project management. So there's so many different ways to apply.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's trying to figure out what's the most effective way for your business. Like there's, we've tried all this different Scrum before, and Agile, and all these different, and you just got to figure out what works, and you've got to evolve your system. And as well, it's tricky for us as an agency. Like, we've got different sort of models which work well with different types of project management. Like, web development works great for Agile, but like SEO doesn't, so you kind of got to like find the hybrid in between and make sure everyone's on the same page. And that's the tricky part.
You've got retainer-based clients, you've got project-based clients, and you've got different services in between. So you almost need different methodologies for each type.
Yeah.
So, and then how to build that in. I'm sure you've had a couple of big setbacks along the way. Like, we don't like to admit it, but there's probably been a time or two where you've been like, what's going on here? Like, what would you say your biggest setback you've had?
It's hard to say. Like, as you evolve in business, what would have in the early stages seemed like a huge setback and a huge issue, in hindsight, just seems like part of a daily ritual as you get bigger and bigger. So, and I think, like, typically, like, in terms of, I mean, setbacks come with things like team leaving and like, or resigning or quitting, or like that kind of thing. I guess, like, that's always tricky, because then you've got to find people to replace them, which is a bit of a nightmare. I think what I've learned is just getting the right team on board. Like, that's always the hardest part, especially in the interest of scale. So setbacks, I guess, would come as a result of people that are just like, get up and go, or just do something stupid, and you got to let them go, and then you got to fill that void, But I mean, that also comes sometimes with serendipities. Like, when you look at, sometimes you got to, okay, well, let me get my hands, get back in here and see how we can improve this part of the business. I mean, like, for example, like, I let go of all our salespeople a little while ago because I wasn't happy with the results. I thought, they weren't hitting KPI. I wasn't happy with the product. I wasn't happy with the pitch. Wasn't happy with the clients they're onboarding and all this kind of stuff. And so, like, that enabled me to go back to the drawing board and redesign the whole, sales process. And then, as a result, off the back of it, now I'm like, I don't even think we need salespeople. Like, we've just deployed all of this technology and AI and all these different workflows and automations and stuff now. And I'm like, we don't even need someone anymore. Like, well, what? Like, so that was kind of a good experience. At that time, I look at it and go, oh, this is a big setback, because I'm getting rid of salespeople. But now I look at it and go, well, that was a big opportunity.
I want to hear a bit more about this, because a lot of business owners in, let's say, this digital space are really good at getting business through referrals. where you're using podcast, but you just talked about how you've built some systems to generate leads and sales as well. So,
well, I mean, I'll tell you now, like you'll never scale. You can't scale referrals. So if any business out there wants to actually grow, like has a growth target, you're not going to do that with referrals. I've never yet met one that does. So, inevitably, at some point, you're going to have to deploy a strategy which is built around generating inbound leads and with a consistency, and that normally comes through paid traffic, whether you like it or don't. So, and then, but then off the back of that, like once the lead comes in, well, what does the system look like? What is the actual process? And there's a whole bunch of you go 24 months ago, like the whole internet was thrown into this whirlwind when Alex Hormozy, launched his book.
Was that 2 years ago?
Well, whatever it was, I don't know, 18 months, $100 million. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, everyone went down that path, like giving away the farm, these big bold offers and guarantees and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And in the early stages, it was good. Like we saw like really good results from that, but then it's just become noise. And to this day, it's noise. Like we have, just competitors all day, just literally copying word for word our ads without even removing the testimonials. Like it's laughable. So, that kind of whole dynamic is something which I looked at and I was like, you know what, this is not a sustainable model. Like we're going to come up with something that's a bit better. And then you get these salespeople that are like, yeah, we'll sell this, no problem. We'll sell this 15 grand program because they're into it there for their commissions. They're not genuinely interested in the fact that, 3 months later, the clients leave and ask for refunds and all that kind of stuff. So there's all these obstacles and things that come, with that, which has sort of led us down to like the rebuilding and simplifying and just, finding a better solution, a better system, I should say.
So what is that like, without giving away your secret sauce? Like how does it look now?
I mean, in terms of the product itself hasn't necessarily changed so much, but the way that we're just presenting it has. So we're not really interested with the big, bold, like ridiculous offers, and because what we found, and I mean, for any of you guys out there that are doing this, like it's so heavily leveraged and dependent on the highly experienced salesperson with the Cole Gordon pitch and the whole like framework where you're like, we're just going to sell on the call and all this kind of stuff. And like big ticket item, getting people paying on the call, which leads to this whole different other like, and then the terms and conditions and the contracts and all this stuff. It's all just buried in terms and conditions. Like it's all bullshit. Like, well, we'll get you this result, small print, provided you're spending $2,000 a day on ads. Like it's a joke, and so no one actually qualifies for it, and so it's pretty dishonest in a way.
You end up having a pretty high churn rate with something like that.
Huge churn rate, and for the right and for obvious reasons, like. So anyway, so looking forward, like we just scrapped all of that and we're just going back to really simple, low entry. Like we're not making it like a big decision for the customers, like it's just, well, come on. And if it works, great, stick around. If it doesn't, then leave, like whatever. We're not going to try and golden handcuff you to any sort of ridiculous. But then the other thing off the back of that as well is like managing, like us managing their expectations and then like them understanding that this isn't like, the golden ticket. Like there's work to be done and you're responsible for doing stuff as well. And, like, so often you like, we would have, businesses that we brought into our environment and they just didn't want to do a thing, it's like, well, it doesn't work like that. So you got to find the right client. You got to make sure you're working with the right people. And that's probably a testament to, I suppose, like being around a while and not necessarily being like needy or chasing leads. Like we turn away way more than we work with just because like we just know who we're going to get the right results for. So understanding who that avatar is and then really dialing in the messaging to suit those businesses, like that's kind of like where we find our sweet spot these days, and that's sort of who we want to be working with.
Yeah, one of my clients I'm working with, we're getting a lot of good success by his front end offer. It's literally just a foot in the door offer. So he's not selling an ongoing retainer package or anything like that. He's selling basically the strategy piece only and doesn't talk about anything after that. So it's a low barrier to entry, and he's found his conversion rate up front is so much better than it used to be.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of people selling like paid discovery as the foot in the door, which is great. Like if it works for them, then cool. But Yeah, I mean, look, it just depends on the business, depends on the vertical. Like a lot of verticals aren't going to pay for a discovery session, for example. You
No,
know,
a single discovery session won't work. It's got to be, it's the next step after that, which might be like a month-long engagement as opposed to a selling an ongoing retainer straight up.
yeah, again, it just whatever works, and I suppose that's the responsibility is to find out what works and
Mm,
and use it, and you can only really do that through like getting it to market,
that's it. Yeah, that's it. So,
throwing money.
but nothing against Cole or the closers thing, but getting people to commit on the phone and with all of these terms and conditions, yeah, it's a good way to get stuff in the door, but you're going to have a high churn. You need to pay sales people ongoing.
It's a yeah, I don't. I mean, look, it can be effective. It's very pushy. It always creates animosity. It always leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Even like I don't know. We didn't have a good experience with it, and then it's very hard to sell it as well. And so, which means you need a huge amount of leads, which you're paying for. So then your client acquisition costs, they can be quite high, which in the grand scheme of things are probably not that high, but you need to have the model built around retention, which is always a struggle when people know they've got like a program deadline and, if they're not happy, they just leave, So anyway, I think for some businesses it works quite well, but I just, my bullshit radar's up a lot with that sort of stuff. And I think a lot of other people is as well. Like they've heard it all before.
Yeah. I was talking to someone over in LA the other day, talking on another podcast interview, and he was talking about the fact that the difference between the Australian market and the US market, and how different. So he was saying that Australian businesses or Australian agencies are a lot more advanced in the way they deliver work because it's a very competitive environment. So we've got a small pond kind of thing. Whereas over in the States, there's a big market. So the barrier to convert someone is a lot lower because there's so many people. You don't have to have an amazing quality product. So that's why Cole's closer methodology could work, because it's easier to get sales because you don't have to have an amazing offer. Whereas
maybe, I mean, I think as well I learned this many years ago, like through doing a lot of sales training programs when I was plumbing. And we'd have these American sales trainers that would come out and they'd show us how they do things, and we were like, if you did that in Australia, you would literally get your face punched in. Like, so you've got to sort of run the gamut there on what works in different markets and verticals and things like that. I truthfully don't. I don't know if like it's true that clients would be easier to close over there. I don't know. Maybe it is. Like we've got a handful of North American clients. We have a decent footprint over there with the podcast, so that's kind of on our radar to launch over there. But I think the important thing to understand, like, I mean, for us, we realised to work in that market, they expect and they probably rightfully deserve like on the ground support. So you've got to be able to sustain that as well. Like have somebody over the ground over there that can take calls, manage accounts from there in their time zone, and just give those clients the attention they deserve,
Totally. What are you seeing? Like, the industry's changing a lot, especially since COVID. What are you seeing needs to change, and what has changed over the last couple of years?
Oh, I mean, COVID. I think COVID was a really good reset for a lot of businesses. Like it cleaned out a lot of dead wood. Like I know it was like maybe a couple of months into COVID. I know the Sydney Morning Herald reached out because they were doing a piece on trade businesses or something, and they were saying, "Oh, how do you think that's going to affect trade businesses?" And as soon as I said it, I kind of regretted it. But then in hindsight, I was like, "No, actually." Like I said, I think truthfully, I've seen global crises before. Typically, the businesses that embrace this as an opportunity to improve their processes are the ones that are going to emerge strongest from it. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened, Yeah. And although there's a lot of, adversity and, there was a lot of lot of bullshit that happened on government level, which screwed a lot of people over in terms of like their business being shut down. Like we had loads of clients in Victoria that went under and all this kind of stuff. And like that kind of stuff, sure. Like that's a lot of that was out of their hands, and especially like bigger businesses that were working, commercial spaces and, like a lot of those, a lot of them got shut down through no fault of their own. But then, on the residential side, there are a lot of businesses that have just evolved and adapted, and they sort of made that transition from what was seemingly a very face-to-face transaction business to, embracing technology and moving a little bit more remotely and just changing some of their systems and processes and things like that. And they emerged stronger. And then I think as well, like these things are never going to stop. There's always going to be something. It's going to be a global financial crisis. There's going to be a new president. There's going to be some virus. There's going to be there's always some shit that's going on. And so you can't really use that as an excuse, I don't think, these days to blame. You've just got to adapt. And then now we've got this whole AI evolution and, all these kind of, which truthfully has just been, from a marketer's perspective, has just been the biggest game changer we've ever seen for like, the outcomes that we can deliver for clients and the way that we operate. And like, we're just all over it.
Yeah.
I don't try to question then, but.
Oh, you did it in a roundabout sort of way. So, if our listeners were going to take away one piece of actionable insight from you, what would you say the biggest piece of insight and advice would be?
And spend the time on the strategy. Like, just take the time to plan shit out. Honestly, like, what does the 12-month out like target look like, and reverse engineer it. I honestly just don't think people. And I didn't for a very, very long time, take the time in the strategic side of the business and just setting the objectives, setting the targets, and then reverse engineering the stepping stones to get to it. And it's so powerful. You just got to.
It's simple. Like, that's what I preach all the time. You do the base work or the foundation work at the start, and it makes your life so much easier after that.
It's amazing. It's refreshing. It's empowering when you realize, like, most times when you do set those targets, you get there way quicker than you anticipate. And it's also empowering to look at, like, when you break down those big macro goals and targets into bite-sized chunks, it's like, oh, I only need to do that to get that. But it's just a consistency thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the strategy and then the reporting, which I tie into strategy, I think that should be part of your weekly revisions and whatever. Like, just bring your reporting into that dynamic so you can make agile decisions based on on things that are happening in real time, as opposed to getting to like the end of the quarter and then looking at it and going, whoa, shit, that didn't work out. Like, just being a bit more responsive to those kind of things. Like, that's something that's made a huge difference to us.
Yeah, having that data so you can make real decisions.
Yeah, and just having it in real time, and visiting it regularly, as opposed to, quarterly or even monthly, can be too much.
Yeah. Matt, thank you very much for your time today. We all know we can get you on the site shed, but what's the best way to contact you outside of that?
Man, Tradie Web Guys and the site shed, you can find me anywhere. So we're not hard to find on either of those platforms, all the socials, all the websites. It's all geared towards that. So yeah.
Awesome, mate. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into The Growth Equation. If you've enjoyed the show, hit that subscribe button and leave a review. It helps us big time. Catch you next time. And if you want more, head over to evolvetogrow.com.au for show notes and exclusive content.